Well, welcome to this session on AI-resistant assignments. Really excited to be here with you this morning. I'm really hoping that this activity can be more of an activity versus me kind of sharing all of the information. There will be a lot of talking, but also a lot of collaborating, I'm hoping, and working together on what exactly an AI-resistant assignment and then in the end, an AI-resistant assessment practice could potentially be. We know that AI, especially when it comes to writing, is sending a lot of things in a tailspin. And so we have a couple of options. We can choose to continue to do things the way that we've always done, which is not working out so well for a lot of people. Post-secondary as well as secondary, we're seeing that AI can do a pretty good job of writing an essay, and it can do a pretty good job of writing a persuasive piece. It can do a pretty good job of sounding like a grade 7 or sounding like a grade 8. And so what does that mean for our assessment practices? What does that mean for when we give assignments? And how can we do a little bit of tweaking? So there's a lot of pre-warning. There's a lot of writing in these slides, a lot to read. However, I'm going to walk through it with you. And I like to kind of think of it, this framework that we're going to go through today, as the teacher's college, when you were in teacher's college and you had those big giant lessons that you had to fill out. And as you're going through them, you're like, okay, once I get into the classroom, I quite likely am not going to be writing out this entire lesson plan. I'm going to be doing a lot more things on the fly. But the purpose of those lesson plans was to be really active and engaged in what are the things that are necessary? What do we need to consider? What does differentiation look like? What does assessment look like? What does a minds on, or all of those pieces? So while it's quite likely that every time you do an assignment, you will not go through this framework, the hope would be that you can kind of pull some pieces and think about how can we tweak things that are already there. So AI doesn't necessarily mean that you have to start from square one, but what it does mean is that we have to kind of shift some of our thinking to make sure that our assessments really meet the needs of our students, but also that it's not just being regurgitated by AI. So just a piece of information as well for you. This activity is also being done across secondary today as well. So that really great work happening cross panel. Something that we're seeing AI playing a big role in assignments and assessments across all grade levels. So we're really hitting home with this today. So our goal today is to drill down into what we're calling the ADAPT framework. Take a look at some existing assignments that you already have. The ADAPT framework is based off of research, things that we are seeing in research and that have been tested across different spectrums of education and tweaked to be able to meet the needs of our educators. So we'll take a look at some of that research as well. And then it is hoped that by the end of this time, you will have designed, either individually or in your groups, an assessment that is AI resistant. Now, we use the word resistant a little bit more loosely than for sure it's foolproof, but it will help us to really think about what are some things that we can bring in that maybe will help us in this area. So when we take a look at this ADAPT framework, it's really based on our lesson design. And so taking a lesson that maybe you already have and adapting it. So how is it that we can have an authentic assessment in this age of AI? And how can we really highlight those unique human qualities that we have? Because we know that AI is not human. AI can generate certain things. AI is really good at certain tasks, then it's not great at other tasks. And one of the tasks it's not good at is being human. Can't. And so we need to really pull out that human aspect in our assessment, in our design, our lesson design, to be able to pull out the knowledge from our students and make sure we're not assessing something that's been completed by an AI chatbot. So while we can't necessarily feel that we can outsmart AI tools, you can try. You likely won't be able to. I haven't been able to do it yet. If you get there, let me know. We instead of outsmarting them, we can really think about how we can integrate and work with AI tools throughout the process to be able to create something that's really, really dynamic. So often we're hearing when it comes to assignments and assessments, what are the AI detection tools that are available at WCDSB? The AI detection tools that we have at WCDSB are you. We know that AI detection tools are mathematically impossible. They are incredibly inaccurate. They're not something that we will be adapting or integrating at any time soon. They definitely do a huge disservice to our ML students, our students who are differently abled, because they pick up on language patterns, and therefore they often accuse students of plagiarizing and using AI who maybe have not. So instead of us really trying to outsmart and figure out who's using it, who's not, we need to be able to take a look at our assessments and our assignments and really think about what exactly are we trying to assess, and are we doing something that is coming from the student or has the ability to be done by an AI chatbot. So when we look at this ADAPT framework, we're looking first at authentic assessment. So how can we design assessments that really require that personalized touch to them, the expertise of our students, reflections, thinking about if a student were to not be in your classroom, would they still be able to complete the assessment? If the answer to that is yes, then quite likely a chatbot could also complete that assessment. We're looking maybe that there won't be one correct answer, but a spectrum of answers, and how are students applying what you have taught them to that learning, and then bringing in their own lived experiences. Then we really want to think about that dynamic process. So are we assessing the process, or are we assessing the product? There's a spot for that in everything, but we really want to highlight that triangulation of data and look at that process that's there. So is it conversations that you're having? Are there checkpoints throughout the assessment? Are you looking at drafts? Maybe you're calling AI to the table and saying to students, all right, I want your first draft to be done using Copilot, but then I really want you to pull apart that first draft. What are you noticing? What are you seeing? What questions do you still have? And then assessing that process that they're using to assess Copilot. Maybe the questions that they're asking Copilot too. You can really see what their understanding is from the context. We want to design assessments that are evolutionary, and they evolve based on what you have been teaching your students. What is the active demonstration? So do they verbally present what they've learned, or what they've done? Do they have the ability for classmates to ask questions? Can they defend what they've done? And so we can think about that right in time, in person evaluation of what they know, and maybe the questions that they still have. Is there peer review? Is there an ability to have back and forth learning that's there? And then we may be shifting to that assessment of that peer learning. We want to really have those personalized elements. So do students have choice? Are they able to customize what has been given to them? And are you really transparent in the design? So is AI allowed? Is AI not allowed? How is AI allowed? Can AI be an editor? Can AI help brainstorm ideas? Be really clear and transparent with what is allowed and what is not allowed. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to still try and use it, but if we can be a little bit more transparent and we leave out that gray area, we're seeing a lot of students who maybe are using it and not saying anything because their teacher didn't say anything. And so where is that middle ground to help our students out? So thinking about that, my question for you, and I'm hoping you can kind of pop some answers into the chat for me, please. Think about a writing assignment that you think could be done by Copilot or by AI. So maybe it's an assignment you've done before. Maybe it's an assignment that you're just thinking of at the top of your head. It doesn't have to be a whole lengthy something, but what is something that you think that AI could do? Mhm. Our first, thanks, Chris. Book reports. Absolutely, right? Persuasive paragraphs. 100%. Thanks, Helen. And crew, if there's other people there, I appreciate it. Mhm. Creative writing for sure. Adam, I don't know if you have a mic. I'd love to hear from you or in the chat with your group. Inquiry task. Tell me a little bit more about that. Not one that would have come to my mind.
So not so much from the language curriculum, but more like in a history or geography assignment where I've asked them to look into a certain subject and create some sort of a presentation. And what's coming back is what they've found through Google searches. But Google nowadays is doing the AI work for students in a way that it didn't seem to do previously. But
Mhm.
generating, like, instead of taking you to links, it's now giving you the content that something like Copilot would also be giving you.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Absolutely, right? That Gemini now is the first link. We used to have like those. So now it goes like you have your Google search, and then it has your Gemini response from your Google search. Then it has a whole bunch of sponsored, and then it has the things underneath, right? Where we used to kind of take a look at that. The first link might be potentially more valid, maybe not, who knows? But thanks, Adam. I appreciate that. Creative writing, write a poem or song. Absolutely, right? So all of these things, I think back to an assignment that I did once in a grade 7, 8 class, right? Write me a persuasive essay convincing your teacher that you should have a class pet, right? Copilot can absolutely do those things. So if we demonstrate that really, really quickly, going back to Copilot. So if we take a look here, we know that we can access Copilot through My Apps. You can also just do it through a regular browser, but make sure that you are using the protected chat right here, which is the shield with the check mark. So you know for sure that you are within our system in that protected chat. So if I'm pretending, I'm a grade 7 student, I can say something like, you are a grade 7 student. Write a 5-paragraph essay that, let's even be more specific, persuasive essay that convinces your teacher to get a class pet, right? Just going to press enter here. Copilot's going to go ahead and write that essay for me. And then if my student was doing it and hoping to potentially pull one over on your teacher, they could say things like, make a few mistakes in this essay, right? And we'll see how long it takes. Here's the essay with a few mistakes added. So maybe they're trying to say, it wasn't written by a bot because there's some essays in there. They're adding there's mistakes in there. We're adding a few human elements to that. So we've seen that creates a huge challenge, right? Assessments that we've had or assignments that we've had that traditionally we would have required a lot more student emphasis in that, the student piece to it, Copilot can do it. And so what exactly does that mean for what we're asking students to do? I wonder if in thinking about the persuasive essay and maybe the class pet, does anyone have ideas of ways that they might shift that? So instead of saying write the 5-paragraph essay, what are some things that you might do as an educator to shift that assessment, to make it so the AI piece can't play such a huge role? Thanks, Chris. Absolutely, right? Beautiful. So Chris says, make it a class debate. Adam says, brainstorm ideas together with a peer. Use a graphic organizer to generate ideas. Absolutely. Pre-writing graphic organizers to show initial ideas. Absolutely, 100%. We could do something like have a class debate and then write the essay based on somebody else's opinion. So I want you to write the essay based on Sarah's opinion and convince Sarah of something, and ask to use direct quotes from that class debate, right? Yes, a student could pop that into Copilot and they could use part of it, but you're going to see that that initial human connection makes it a little bit harder. And then having a student maybe present and say, okay, this was so and so's idea. This is how I'm going to convince them, and then have them debate that topic back and forth. So that real human element. That pre-writing graphic organizer, absolutely. Looking at the whole entire process of it all, and then where did you go? Where are you at? That really, really helps take away from that sort of AI piece in it all. And please don't get me wrong, this is difficult, right? It's making things a lot more challenging, but we are seeing some really exciting assessments coming out of this. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is you have access to the slide deck, I hope. If you don't, I will pop this into the chat for you. And I'm going to ask you to either in your group, if you're in a group, or on your own, within the slide deck, you're going to find on this slide here that there is a framework checklist for you. And so what that does is it goes through all of the steps of our ADAPT framework, asking some key questions in a 1-point rubric to have you think about an assessment that you have done. And we're focusing on writing in this area, but maybe you want to have an integrated thinking piece to it. So maybe it's an essay in history or geography, something like that. But really think about maybe something that's challenged you or that you've been challenged by, and receiving some feedback by students completing it in generative AI. So using that framework, you're going to choose one assessment that you currently use or plan to use, and use the ADAPT framework in the single point rubric to evaluate that assessment. So think about whatever reflection way in the end of this that you might want to do. So maybe that's a conversation with you and your team, or maybe you want to write in a journal or make a little drawing, whatever that may be. But really thinking about what was difficult for you, what challenged you, what is making the process potentially more authentic, and then look at how you can transform the assessments that you already have. Now, if you've never used a single point rubric before, AI is really great at making single point rubrics. So think about using that as a tool for yourself if you are making something like this. But we know that single point rubrics are really great because they take some of that heavy language out of a regular rubric, and it allows students to really focus on the task at hand as opposed to all of the levels that are there. So often when I would give students a rubric, I would put level 4 first, not level 4 at last, because I found that it was so much reading for students to get to the spot where they could really see something that they were looking to as being, that top-notch piece. And so a single point rubric takes a lot of that out of there. If you've used them before, you can really see that they help have some clearer guidance for your students. But we're hoping that that can do the same thing for you today here as you're using the ADAPT framework. So you're going to really select that first assignment, analyze your assignment, and what I have for you here is taking a look at each part of the ADAPT framework and asking some really key questions. So if we went back to that 5-paragraph persuasive writing essay, does the assignment connect to real-world contexts or problems? I mean, yes and no. What is the likelihood of having a class pet? What is the likelihood that they have done an assignment like this before? Is there another potentially real-world problem, something happening in the news right now that would have them have to think about some current, relevant, less likely to already have been completed online tasks? we could take a look at that a little bit further. Did it require personal experience or reflection? Maybe, maybe not. Are students applying concepts to unique situations? I would say in that assignment, absolutely not. Was there room for multiple valid approaches or solutions? I guess yes, because I could convince in different ways, but it's structured in the 5 paragraphs. What exactly are we asking them to do? So you can see those questions that are there. Now, after each one of the slide, we go a little bit more into some of the research that's there, into why authentic assessment or why the certain area of the ADAPT framework is really effective through a research lens. So how can we see that this will potentially help you in your assessments and help your students to really have that authentic learning piece? So I'm going to pause there. Does anyone have any questions for me? So if I go back to the task that you're working on right now, you are going to find an assessment or think about an assessment that you plan to use or that you have used before that you think that maybe could be completed by AI, or maybe not. I mean, you can take whatever you'd like. We're going to go through the ADAPT framework, or you'll go through the ADAPT framework. And then I'm going to call us back together to share some of the ideas that you've been through. What did you do? How did you tweak it? And the goal would be that in the end of our time together, that we have some really concrete ideas of how we can shift some of our assessment to really help with that AI resistant piece. So what I'm going to ask us to do is I'll give you the next, let's say 10 minutes. I know that's not a lot of time, but I want to give us time to be able to share, collaborate a little bit, think about those assessments. So let's come back together at 10:50. Quite likely you won't go through the entire ADAPT framework and that single point rubric, but using this link right here, it will make a copy for you of this single point rubric. 1 second. Teams toolbar. Right here. And so take a look at that. Now, if you don't want to fill out the whole thing, totally understandable, but take some time to maybe talk with the people around you. Think about that it takes some work to tweak some of those assessments. So what exactly is that going to look like? And what could you do? Thanks so much, everybody, for really diving deeply into one of the assessments that you have and thinking about it really critically. So we know that one of the ways that we can make learning really sticky for our students and for ourselves is to engage in reflection. So I would love you to share with me. We know that, reflection can come in lots of different ways. So think about possibly maybe a written reflection or a visual map, but I'm hoping that there might be some brave people in here who would like to engage a little bit in some collaborative dialogue. So either in the chat or unmute, I'd love you to share with me maybe what did you notice? What are you thinking about? Is there anything from the ADAPT framework that you think like, my assessments, I really do a great job of. What are some things that maybe aren't represented in some of your assessments or this assessment in particular? I'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think about or discuss as you went through the framework?
All right, so we looked at 2 different assessments. One was a financial literacy assessment, and we noticed that the connections to the real world context and problems for the authentic assessment aspect were fairly strong. Some of the dynamic process and active demonstration aspects to it were a little bit of a next step for us. But the personalized and the transparent design were also strengths, just because it was so unique for the budgeting and financial literacy aspect of it. And yeah, as long as we just clearly set the boundaries with what they were allowed to use with AI before, then there really wasn't an issue. The other thing I can say is I know that you have some stuff about how to introduce AI into the classroom, and some of those assessments, or not assessments, some of those lessons are really helpful for having students engaging in a thinking classroom, and what and where they can use AI productively really helps.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate that. Um, yeah, the thing that I love so much about the ADAPT framework is that there are so many strengths that we have in the assessments. So looking at that financial literacy assessment, you don't have to change the whole thing. It sounds fantastic. Maybe there might be some tweaks, or maybe when you're going through the ADAPT framework, you're like, yeah, this is great the way that it is. We're good to go and move on. So it doesn't necessarily mean everything needs to be changed, everything needs to be modified. It's great that you found those strengths. And thanks for sharing about the resources. If anybody in this call would like to get access to those resources or is interested in starting out with their students, let us know. I'm an email away. I'd be happy to help. I'm also so happy to come and work with any one of you if you would like to have me. So just let me know. Just wrapping up our time together, and thanks again for sharing. If anything else comes up, pop it in the chat. Feel free to unmute. But we're going to pop to the next part of this activity. And really, so we can think about transforming assessments, absolutely. But what I really do want to show you here is that we can also use AI as a partner in this whole process. So I am super cool, and I do my best thinking at 3 a.m. So I have a pad of paper beside my bed, and every time I'm woken up in the middle of the night thinking about something, I write that thing down, and then I go back to bed. Or I kind of have something that I'm ruminating over and I can't get out of my brain. I'd love to talk to somebody about it, but I'm not going to wake up my family at 3 a.m. Well, guess what? AI doesn't sleep. So I can go back and forth and use AI as a thought partner when I'm going through some of these tasks, or really other tasks that I have, something that I may be challenged with. Something that I want to have a critical friend or I want some feedback on, I can use AI for that. So if we think about our assignments, we can leverage AI to help us in those areas. Maybe we want to have AI give us a whole different spectrum of sample responses for assignments or for a test, and then we give our students the answers and say, what could the question be? We can think about all of these different idea generation tools that we have at our fingertips using AI. So I'm going to demonstrate that really quickly. If we go back on slide 24, you're going to see that there's a prompt that's presented to you that you can use AI to help you with your assignments. So I had my 5-paragraph essay, and I want to think about how I might be able to tweak that assignment to make it a little bit more AI resistant. So using this prompt, I can say, I want you to analyze this assignment, and I'm going to actually say what the assignment was of writing a 5-paragraph essay. I want to use the ADAPT framework, and it shares what the ADAPT framework is. Now, you could always go back in and copy and paste some more specifics about the ADAPT framework. Remember, when we're writing an AI prompt, we want to fill in as many blanks as we can. If there are too many things that the AI is not sure about, don't forget that it will always make up an answer. It will never tell you it doesn't know an answer to something. So the more you give it, the better the chances are that it will not hallucinate. In this case, we're going to just move on because we don't have a ton of time, and we're going to be able to analyze this as a human. So maybe in here we want to identify elements that are vulnerable to AI completion, suggest 3 ways to incorporate authentic context, recommend checkpoints to make the process more dynamic. And so when I click on this, I can use Copilot to help me really pull apart that assignment that I have. And so maybe it's saying here, elements that are vulnerable to AI completion, the structure and the format, the basic content, the grammar and syntax, right? All of those things AI is really good at. What are ways that we can bring in some authentic text, personalized experience, local issues, interviews, and surveys. So things that we've already talked about, but really it helps to jog that memory and think about the amount of time that it takes sometimes to tweak these assignments. I can save that time by using AI. What are some of the recommended checkpoints? So like we talked about, that brainstorming, maybe there's drafts, maybe providing progress reports all the way through. And then what are some ways that we can have demonstrations of learning, and then offer personalized options. So again, think about our AI as a partner, can help you in this whole process. If you want to dig a little bit more into this, we've created a choice board for you here. I know some of us are sitting here for 45 minutes listening to me talk is not the learning avenue of choice. So we have some ideas, something to read, something to listen to, something to watch. If you're looking for something to do with this activity, check out this board here. There's a lot of options for you there to really dig deeper into this assessment. We know this is playing a huge role in all of our lives, and it's not easy. So all the learning that we can do, all the ways that we can collaborate are really, really helpful. You'll also see we have a new Instagram page. We'd love you to follow us. If you want to learn more about AI, check out the Deep Learning Dialogues podcast. We have some pretty great guests on there, as well as on the Innovate's website. There are a lot of resources available for educators. As well, I'm a resource. Please reach out. Please let me know if you need anything. I'm always here to help, and getting to work with real humans is the best part of my job. So be a real human, reach out. I'd love to work with you. There's some references there if you want to dive deeper into some of the recent research on AI in education.